I know what it's like to be a virtual assistant, to kind of over communicate, to make sure that your client knows, hey, you're getting those things done. But it also allowed me to understand schedule flexibility. For me, there's no requirement for somebody to be up under me all of the time. If I share the information, give the instruction on how to get it done, well, then I feel like I've given you the tools so that you can fly and feel confident and comfortable with us working together. So that's the type of leader I am, just based on what the things I've gone through as a virtual assistant myself.
Okay, hello and good day to everyone. That is really tuning in here at another episode of the Sphere Rocket Podcast Network. Once again, I'm going to be the host for today's episode. My name is Dwayne. As I mentioned, another very special guest. But of course, I guess the better introductions will belong to the person herself. So, Nadia, how are you doing today?
Great, Dwayne. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, amazing too, and I'm loving the background. I can tell you definitely read a lot of books. You're a bookworm or something.
I am. Can you tell?
Well, I would like to ask you right now, what kind of books do you usually read? Is it like more about business, stories, fantasy, fiction?
So it's mostly about business and self-improvement. I've just recently started getting back into some fiction books, but I always see myself trying to get back to tinkering, to becoming a better professional, a better human being, and just reading what's out there to impact my mind in a positive way.
All about the positivity. That's what we really need in this world right now. Lots of it. And I think a lot of the generations right now, I'm not hating on them, but the generations that we have right now are not as much as readers compared to, the people back then, because I guess we have a lot more recreational activities like games and stuff like that. I'm not saying they're all a bad thing, but it's still different when you actually read a book, feel the paper, there's just something about reading books that's, I forgot the word, like dopamine-ish effect, just the feel and
it just feels good to turn the pages. I actually have a book. Yes, I have these books behind me, but I actually have a book right next to me at the present moment too. So,
there you have it. You should definitely like to read. And I guess a question for me is, if you could read a book 3 times without ever getting tired of it, which one is it and why?
Man, there's a couple of them. So,
okay.
Yeah, so there's a series of books from an artist that I have, and I'll have to kind of look again at it really quick, from Austin Kleon. Actually, I'll pull it from because these are real books. So Keep Going is something that I would read over and over again. Reason being, it's like 10 ways to stay creative in good times and in bad. And it has like little photos in it, so it makes it a little bit fun, but it's also really nice. It's like tidying is exploring. And so it doesn't really feel like your traditional chapter book, because it's really not, but it's a great inspiration, and there's some little things on the back too. So I really like this one. I kind of reference it a lot and read it over and over again, just because I could just open the book and say, all right, there's something inspirational in there. I don't necessarily have to read it cover to cover. And then another one, because I can't have just one, is We Should All Be Millionaires. Is a really great one too.
I agree with that. We should all be millionaires. The title itself, I already agree.
Yes.
It's a good book, and hopefully it's realistic for everyone that reads it. But,
correct.
It's more about the positivity, and of course, and business and getting rich. Getting rich is not bad. People wanted to be rich because it's one of the goals why we're working so hard to have that so-called financial freedom, and that's pretty much the aim. And pretty much now that we're here, so in terms of your business or the people or the industry that you work with, can you tell us more about yourself and your experiences?
Yeah, so I do work in the real estate industry, but I am what you would call a mortgage broker. So I work on the financing side. So if somebody's not purchasing a house using cash, right? That they don't have all that cash in their pocket, or maybe they don't want to spend that cash, they want to leverage lending, then I am somebody who helps to make that happen. The difference between going to me or going to a bank, would be like we create a personal synergy. I get to understand what my clients need, but then I'm also able to provide many different options for clients maybe who are self-employed, or maybe they don't always show a lot of money on their tax returns, but they do have the means to be able to put down more money. So that's what I do in the real estate.
I see. Okay, got a couple of questions on how your work goes around, because you're like pretty much a third party to like a bank, or are you like a separate entity wherein I would think that you would always need to go to the bank at the end of the deal. So you're like, as you mentioned, a broker. So how does it work again?
Yes. So that's a great question. So I have lending partners that I work with, right? And some of these lending partners do have banks where people can deposit money into, but some of these partners don't have any depository products or options. And so those would be considered non-bank lenders. So sometimes it's a bunch of investors getting together and they have the means, and they work with me, someone who's a broker, who goes out into the community, really creates that rapport with my clients, realtors, or other people who are in the industry. And then I get to know my clients and bring that information back to the lender. I work through the entire process with my clients as well as my team. And then what happens is once the loan closes, the lender, it's on their books. So it's not on my books. I bring that information, but I'm able to control what type of fees are charged to our clients. Whereas with the bank, they're not able to really control those fees, have a higher overhead. I have a little bit more flexibility with my clientele.
So would you consider, would it be cheaper to go through you, or I'm just trying to see the comparison, whether compared to going direct to a bank. So I would assume there would be additional fees as a broker, or with a bank. Is it going to be the same amount, just more convenient with you, because you'll be able to provide different options compared to a bank who pretty much cares on how much money they're gonna be getting in the long run once you get a loan and stuff. So can you tell us what would be the pros and cons, just the pros of you compared to having a bank for the market?
So the pros for me is, okay, you have direct access. You can reach me sometimes on the weekend, right? Outside of the hours between 9 and 5, because most people are working between 9 and 5 here. And so you can find me before or after, depending on the timing we scheduled. But then also I'm able to control some of those costs, right? So I can determine if I want to charge a processing cost, or I can determine, but I'm going to waive this fee or cover this fee for you. Most of the time the bank can't. Sometimes banks may beat me in rate options, but that's quite rare. That's unless somebody has maybe high net worth and has banked with the bank for a while. But for me, I'm able to, the difference between, let's say, a retail t-shirt shop, right? So a retail t-shirt shop will sell a shirt for $50. But if you buy 10,000 of those shirts, right, that same shirt, you're going to get it for $10. So that's kind of like where I am, where you get to pull your credit one time. I'm basically your personal shopper. I find the rates, find the options that are best for you, because not every lender has what my client needs, right? So it could be based on credit score. It could be based on property type. It could be based on all sorts of things. So when people ask me, oh, what are your rates, or what are the rates? It's kind of hard to give them a blanket answer. I'm really thorough and honest with my clients and let them know, like, hey, there's a number of factors. What's your story? And so I take their story and then make it happen for them.
Well, that's amazing, I would say. And you know what? That cuts off a lot of the work from people, because me, in general, not just in mortgage, if I'm going to shop for something, just being, when I'm getting tight on my budget, I'm going to search out, any e-commerce stores that sells the same stuff. I'm going to look up which one sells the cheapest. And it will take me a long time. I would be indecisive in which one I'm going to take. Wait, this one is cheaper, but this has better warranty options. This has cheaper shipping fees. This gets delivered fast. So basically, you organize all of them and just give out maybe the top 3, so the client will still get any options. But pretty much, they can be rest assured that those are the best. They don't need to go on to different banks to get the best rates. You do all of them. Is it correct? Banks or lenders, right? Are the lenders
lenders?
Banks?
Yes. So
Oh,
some are banks and some are not banks. Some are just investors. Hmm.
and I would assume that lenders would have cheaper rates compared to banks because banks are just already banks. So I guess that's how you're able to get better prices compared to them. And
Yes.
as you mentioned earlier, your requirements compared to banks are a lot more flexible, comfortable. Is that correct?
Yes. So there's a lot more flexibility when it comes to the different options that we provide. And that's why I say I like for my clients to tell me their story, actually let them speak first so I can listen to them. And then when I'm able to listen to them, I can say, all right, this is what I think is the best for you from a professional perspective. But I do like for my clients to be involved in the process, or as much or as involved as they want to be, because it's important that they have an understanding of, okay, here are the steps that we took in order to get to the finish line. I know not everybody wants to always hear all of those things. People are like that, where the doctor will ask you, do you want to know everything I'm doing, or do you not want to know nothing, or do you want that information in the middle? And so I'm quite mindful of that when I'm talking to my clients and giving them the information that they need or that they're asking for.
I think that's also one of the bigger, plus points for you, because you have this personal touch. It's not just you giving out the contract. Okay, here's the contract, sign it, or get your attorney or lawyer to read it out. But it's
Correct.
you get to know your clients, so you'll be based, because sometimes their decisions are not just going to be based on their budget, but sometimes you need to ask what they actually need. Maybe they think they need it, but you being the more experienced pro would be able to provide them, hey, I think this would be better than, because those kind of things that I don't think bank managers or sellers would be able to have enough time for, unless they're like friends and families. But otherwise, that's like a really small percentage of that happening. So
Correct.
How were you able to get involved in this? This is new for me. It's the first time I've heard of this kind of service in mortgage.
So my family has been in some aspect of real estate for as far as I could remember. And so I was introduced actually through my mom. And so I actually wasn't going to be in the business, but I also learned how to communicate with my clients in a way that was familiar and authentic to me. And so it just made the experience even better.
So I guess it's in the blood in some way.
Yes.
You didn't expect it at all, but once you got started, you just felt it, and you're like, okay, I think I was born to do this, and
Correct.
Now, fast forward now.
It really comes down to helping people. It just, like, this happens to be the vehicle right now, the car that I'm driving, but it really comes down to helping others.
I think that that's something that's beyond the money in terms of working. You're not gonna last, I don't know, several years without feeling, that I don't want to go to work like today, that kind of boredom. It would happen at some point, but if you really love what you're doing, because you're not just for the money, but that you're gonna make people save money, perhaps their biggest investments in their life.
Exactly. It's the most money they'd probably ever spend in their lifetime. And so I'd like to make sure that my clients feel educated about the things that I am in control of in the driver's seat in that moment, but also the things that happen there after the process. So my clients can always reach out to me after the process, even if it has nothing to do with the mortgage itself, because there's insurance and taxes and all that stuff. And so I'm always willing to educate my clients or provide resources even after the closing.
And also, you made them involved, as you mentioned, as much as they want to be involved. Some clients, as you mentioned, just don't want any of those gritty details. They just trust you. They just wanted to get the deal over with. And there are some that's really keen to details. They wanted to see every step in the way. So it's good that you have that kind of flexibility. You cater to any kinds of requirements like that. But if it comes to all of your clients, I'm guessing you should have a lot of them. So are you like a one-woman show, or do you have a team behind you?
So I keep the team pretty lean because I use a lot of technology tools to kind of help us do certain things. And I still want to be able to have those nice intimate conversations. And it works for me, right? So I have about Really other two hardworking women on my team. And that's what I'm saying, like technology has allowed for us not to be wasteful in terms of just having so many people around. And so it's really great. And we've been able to maximize as much as possible.
Yeah, technology is amazing. A lot of the things we have right now, we can't even imagine it 15 years ago. Like, this would be possible. I wouldn't imagine myself working from home. I think 15 years ago, my dream job is to be, I don't know, anything in an internet cafe because I enjoyed playing games and computers so much, might as well be involved with it. And, being the lazy guy that I am, I wanted to work. I just wanted to be at home. When I was a kid, I was thinking like that. Yeah. And fast forward, it's possible.
You're working
now,
from
right?
home. Look at you, right?
Exactly. Not just me, like hundreds, thousands of people are already working from home. And that's the concept we call virtual assistants. So that being said, are any of your team members virtual assistants? Just curious.
Yes, so my entire team is remote. But yes, I have virtual assistants on my team.
How is it? Did you start off with virtual assistants, or were you first having, in office employees?
So I've always been on the mindset of using virtual assistants. Fun fact is I was one myself about 10 years ago or more now. And so I worked with a number of clients all over the United States. So New York and California, Georgia, just over. And so I knew I know what it's like to be a virtual assistant, to kind of over communicate, to make sure that your client knows, hey, you're getting those things done. But it also allowed me to understand schedule flexibility. For me, there's no requirement for somebody to be up under me all of the time. If I share the information, give the instruction on how to get it done, well, then I feel like I've given you the tools so that you can fly and feel confident and comfortable with us working together. So that's the type of leader I am, just based on what the things I've gone through as a virtual assistant myself.
I think that's an amazing experience because you're probably the first business owner that I interviewed here that had experience as a virtual assistant. And the common thing that they have is a problem when having virtual assistants. It's hard for them to grasp how it works. They don't know what to teach. They don't have a process to work with, starting up with a business, with hiring someone digitally. But I guess that's not a problem for you because you were one yourself. Like, have you had any doubts on hiring virtual assistants because you're essentially just working from someone from 1,000 miles away? You'll probably never see that person eye to eye, but you know how it feels like. So that's why your mindset is all like virtual assistants, and it definitely works out because the costing is less, and knowing that you have the experience, you should be able to know as well how to handle virtual assistants. So, but still, it would be a bit different because now you're in management. You're managing
Right.
virtual assistants. So how is it like managing virtual assistants? Or have you had experience before managing actual people, if you can compare those two?
Yes. So managing virtual assistants makes you kind of flex a muscle to think ahead of time, and also to be a little bit more detailed in your communication. Because if you put garbage in your communication, then you're going to get garbage out. And you can't be mad at yourself for the garbage that you put in, or you can't be mad at your assistant for the garbage that you put in, and then they're trying to do their best to read your mind, maybe. And so then garbage comes out. So sometimes, even though us as entrepreneurs, we're trying to move quickly, may think like, oh, moving quickly is going to make them move quicker. No, not necessarily. It's just important that you take the time. So whether you may have to sit down on a Saturday, may you have to sit down on a Saturday to kind of put certain things in order to help your assistant. And your assistant can also very much help you to put those recorded items or whatever it is, your standard operating procedures, together. So like you guys can work together as a team in tandem to get those things done correctly. Because nobody is a mind reader. Everybody is human, even if you may not see them in person or get to talk to them in the flesh, but it gives you an opportunity to think ahead of time. Whereas like, fine, if somebody's there in person, and what's so interesting is like I led teams in person too, but that was after working in the digital realm, right? So I think ahead of time with some of these folks in
You've learned some
person.
unique skills. Yeah.
Right. They're not accustomed to thinking ahead of time. They're accustomed to being tapped on the shoulder and saying, hey, can you do this right now? But I just don't think that generally works anyway. Yes, there will be moments where, yes, you'll need somebody to do something rather quickly. But to me, I don't feel like anything is truly an emergency in that regard, unless maybe I'm bleeding out of my arm, but that's an emergency.
Yeah. But at least, you're able to adapt, and, you're able to bring that unique skills because, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of them end up, not pursuing a virtual assistant because they don't have a process. They don't know how to think ahead of time. They would just assume, okay, I hired this expert in graphic design or social media management, so I'll just give the work for them.
Right.
I'll just let them do everything. And that's when you give out trash also comes out. So they would blame the virtual assistant. I mean, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes they need to look like how the management was, and pretty much they needed to improve that, and that affects everything. And before we continue on with the discussion, I'm just going to play a short commercial break, just a few seconds, and then we'll be back after this.
Overwhelmed with work? Well, meet your new partner from Sphere Rocket VA. In just a click, get matched with a virtual assistant who handles all the tedious tasks. No in-person hiring, no extra office gear, just easy online help from our recruitment team. It's like having an extra pair of hands minus the hassle. So ready to relax and see your work done just like magic? Choose Sphere Rocket VA and visit us at www.sphererocketva.com.
And we are back for another for the second part, basically, or the other half of the podcast episode that we have for today with Nadia. So we've talked about virtual assistants and everything, but let's talk more about your business, Nadia. So not in terms of what you do in your business, but a lot of people would be interested because this is pretty much not a common kind of concept for people who's wanting to be in real estate or investing. So what's the best way to contact you and get to know your services and everything?
So you can find me at my email. Email is really easy for me. So it's my first name, Nadia, at my first and last name, NadiaAlcide.com. So it's NadiaAlcide.com. And so that's the easiest way for you to find me. But then I'm also on social media. LinkedIn is a really great place for me. I hang out on LinkedIn quite a bit. And so you can find me with my first and last name on LinkedIn. And yes, I do try to get back to each and every one of you, especially with the help of my assistant on the team. And I'm always open to a one-on-one conversation if needed, so that either you're talking about real estate or you're curious about, hey, what's going on in the market, or you want to know what it's like to have a virtual assistant. I'm also just very open to these conversations because we're all human and we never know what can come from it.
Yeah, I mean, it builds some network of connections as well that will help out one another with each other's business. So that being said, just I guess one last question before we conclude this podcast. I'm sorry because time flies. I actually lost track of the time. I know we have limited time.
Oh, good.
But yeah. So I would like to ask, in a scale of 1 to 10, how much does virtual assistance affect your job and your business, and why?
So I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, so 9 at the moment. It's very important having those extra hands. Obviously, I have the ability, right, to do all the things that a virtual assistant can do just based on my knowledge and my experience. But is that the best use of my time? That's always the question that I'm always asking myself. Is that the best use of my time? And so knowing that it isn't the best use of my time, virtual assistants and help and practitioners are a very important part of my business growth. And it allows me the ability to do things like this, like talk to you, Dwayne. And then it also allows me the ability to talk to other people in the community and do some amazing community work as well.
That's amazingly answered. And oh yeah, there's actually one last that I
Of course.
Answered it earlier on, but pretty much, why do you do what you do beyond the money?
Yes, so of course, why do I do what I do beyond the money? It's important to me to allow my clients to have a good experience. Sometimes in real estate, some folks don't have good experiences. You can kind of tell when people are dialing it in for the money. But I'm a great listener. And I like to kind of hear what my clients' needs are.
Listener.
Thank you. To hear what their needs are so that we can kind of tackle whatever it is that they're trying to get to their next level. Because a lot of the times I'm dealing with folks whose families have never owned a home, or they've never done this and they're afraid. And so I feel like I'm providing the privilege, really, of being that guide on the side as they, conquer maybe something that they're fearful of or something they thought they could never do. And so I'm a bit of a way maker, right? Obviously with the help of divine guidance, but I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity always.
Yeah, amen to that. And I do agree. It's good to have people like you helping out with finances, because I remember back then when I was starting out working, looking at my salary, and looking at the rent prices. I was in Europe back then. Said, okay, I think I will never be financially capable of buying a home. I guess I'll be renting out for the rest of my life. But if you met that kind of broken, you know what? Let me know your finances. We'll be able to work something out. And then he showed me, the options, and okay, wow, so it is possible with the amount I was making back then. So it just takes that one guide to help that it's actually possible. The prices will just carry you from the get-go, but with the options, with a proper guide to how you're going to handle your money, and everything's possible with divine guidance as well.
Yes, as you mentioned. Exactly.
Well, Nadia, it has been an amazing episode with you. I'm sorry it got a bit longer because I lost track of time because of the conversation. And pretty much before we end this, maybe you want to give a shout out to anyone, maybe your virtual assistants, if you have any, if you want to.
Yeah, so I'd like to give a shout out to Sherry Ann Estelor. She's a really great virtual assistant and has helped us to grow incredibly, and I'm looking forward to, as we continue to work together and grow, what's to come from that. So thank you.
Okay, Sharian, you got a really, guess you're doing a really great job if you got that kind of shout out from Nadia, from a former virtual assistant herself. So I guess that's a kind of praise coming from her. And I guess with that being said, that is unfortunately the end of our episode for today. Hopefully you guys have learned a thing or two, or maybe even more for today's episode, and we'll hope to see you again on the next episode of the Sphere Rocket Podcast Network. Goodbye, everyone.